Yeah.
Yeah, I'm really very honored that the organizers put my talk to the beginning, but that also gives me opportunity not to give a real talk. But just to tell something for the beginning of our meeting and to tell maybe about some ideas what could inspire you, our field. There are also some slides which will be opened probably rather soon.
It's true.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I happen to be the one who have attended all 25 gatherings. There is less and less of that kind of people, but if to think about the number 25, I said, I think among you, actually, there might be several who will attend at least 25 gatherings. Because I think that this is a field which is meant to last forever. Because indeed the problems we are dealing with, and we're dealing with life, and as far there is life, as far there is meaning making, as far there is study of meaning making, what is enough? And now I already guess they get to science. Yes.
You have the slides, and we're joining the Zoom so that people in the line can.
So that means our meeting is possible to follow from anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
We also have abstract book everybody has. In this case, the abstract says something else as compared to my talk now. But that doesn't mean that abstract is wrong. It's a compliment to it. Mm. Yeah, communication technology and communication as such, of course, being study of communication was one of those fields due to that semiotics as such has developed so well.
That's great.
But as you know, from ecological point of view, the main most the deepest problem is that there is many things too much, and probably also there is too much communication. One of causes of global disasters. Now, this is the beginning. This view is the view what Jesper Hoffmeyer had to see and was happy to see in at least in last years of his life in Denmark. And now, how to make these things to move?
Very easy. Just
Easy.
press that. Yeah.
This.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So, this is the list of all our gatherings until today. So we have been in 3 continents already. And in these 2 books, some of our work is reviewed. First, the left one gives an overview of first 10 years of gatherings, and the second, next 10 years of gatherings. In 5 years from now, the next book should be published for the next 10 years. But now, we study life. That means this is biology. And biology is said from different perspectives. And the main perspectives probably are physical, that means biophysics, chemical, biochemistry, semiotic, biosemiotics. So this is where we are, one perspective, important perspective in biology. All these, the names actually first came from, already was spelled out in the 19th century, and but the main development has been in the 20th century in all these fields. Biosemiotics a little bit later than other 2. There's interesting reason, of course, for that too. Why so? Life is our object of study. From the perspective of physics, one may say that living organisms are highly ordered, complex, thermodynamically open systems which are in non-equilibrium phase. From the perspective of chemistry, I just use here one of these definitions. Okay, they may simply say life is chemistry, but also here, life is a self-sustaining chemical system capable of Darwinian evolution. That's official NASA definition, or has been at least. But then there are also semiotic ones. Living system is the one that includes a model. And there is no algorithm for making a model, as Robert Rosen says, whom we think we can consider as a biosemiotician. And living system is the one that includes semiosis. Very simple. Biosemiotics in its whole history has got to, I think, has contributed to biology with several interesting, important models and understandings. Starting from Jakob von Uexküll, that organism space, its Umwelt is meaningful. Then later, these comparisons with language, or more generalizing concept of language, was used in order to study from the linguistic point of view. And then animal communication studies, then contributions to understanding species, what is species as a communicative system. Then how knowing as such in the very general sense is possible, and well, how it appears in other living beings besides humans, epistemic processes, and so on. Mediatedness of science processes, the meaning as requiring incompatible types of codes, then looking from the semiotic point of view to development and evolution, and say interpreting the major transitions as the changes in the complexity of semiotics processes. Then semiotic fitting as important, at least important complement to co-evolutionary processes, and several concepts what are analyzed already in last decades. And there are just a couple of interesting events or periods in this history. Biosemiotics, first as a zoosemiotics, very much started to develop mainly under this name since 1960s, and for the whole of semiotics very much happened in 1960s, and among other now also for biosemiotics already. At that time, Charles Morris's approach was probably a great inspiring source among other. And here, simply to notice that already the very first volume of Journal Theoretical Biology included 1961, actually before Thomas Semiotic started to do zoosemiotics. So there was Peter Mahler, one of the greatest ethologists of the second half of the 20th century, writing about logical analysis of animal communication, and including one section of that article about theory of science semiotic explicitly. Then, of course, Tom Sebok's early works on animal communication as semiotic. And at the same time, in molecular biology comes in this usage of the concepts of code and its kind of semi-linguistic description. This is happening just one at the same time. So just burst. Then another thing is our organicist tradition in biology. This has, long history in biology, but particularly it got a growth in 1930s via a theoretical biology club in England, very well described by one of the best historians of theoretical biology, Erik Peterson, in his recent book. Then the same tradition developed by Conrad Waddington and his group, presented in these 4 volumes of theoretical biology. And then third way of evolution, a movement and group of people who is, theoretically led by Dennis Noble and his colleagues. So one of recent book by this group which says that purpose is very important process or a phenomenon in evolution. And that third way of evolution, through this, I would say somehow really, so to say, non-classical biology is developing. So in physics, this non-classical period started already in the beginning of the 20th century together with quantum theory. But in biology, that change was somehow postponed. And this was postponed because neo-Darwinism appeared. And that took a very different turn, so to say, from that organicist tradition. And now this third way of evolution group would develop these views what are pretty much contrary, some say complementary, but according to Denis Noble contrary to neo-Darwinian view. And like phenotype-genotype relationship is not one way, what is according to neo-Darwinism, but two-way process. Evolutionary change does not start from genotype, but mainly and usually from phenotype. The driver of evolution is not natural selection, the main driver, but meaning making. And that's not randomness plus natural selection, but arbitrarity plus semiotic fitting. What is that's the nature of evolutionary process. This change, of course, goes through several interesting dramas. In 2016, there was in London a big meeting of 300 people organized by the same Third Way of Evolution group, where it was felt that now the change has made, so that it's neo-Darwinism, for which meaning as concept had no place, is coming to decrease, at least, if not to end. And now, more recently, 3 years ago, there was an open debate between Denis Noble and Richard Dawkins. I hope several of you have followed it through, because its video is available. This debate is in more detail described in this book, The Death of Neo-Darwinism, which came out rather recently, Dawkins versus Noble, and that Neo-Darwinism is dead. These were really the words spoken at that debate. Now, meaning making. That is, in other words, semiosis. That is the central process for semiotics, and for biosemiotics, because that's basically what we need to understand in order to understand the role of interpretation, science in biology. And now, if we look what it is, in a way, meaning making is happening only here and now, all the time for organisms, just at the present moment. At the same time, meaning making is related to habits, habits which are acquired, which are learned, and which somehow integrate some previous times, maybe long before this current now. And then what is learned can also become very automatic, so automatic that it's like truly frozen, mechanical. And then it's usually called code in biology. So, but it's still related to, or can be related to, semiosis, what is behind that. Of course, code may also arise from purely random processes. Now, the central notion, semiosis, you may see if you look at the literature, has many different definitions. And we should not surprise if there are many definitions of meaning making. Biology can flourish, as we know, has flourished without a strict definition of life for a very long time. So therefore, biosemiotics can flourish without a strict definition of semiosis. A little paradoxical, but actually, this is namely so, and it is even important because science always needs the two levels of concepts. Some which are vague, unanalyzed, and which are very often the words of natural language, like life, organism, species, information, value, meaning, learning, Umwelt. Look, all these are such a rather vague terms. So, but on the other hand, there are also some definitions which are pretty exact. And each of these has several of those. These are now exact, analyzed, and formulated in more or less formal language. And these two should always be together. This is like a principle of co-duality, analog and digital, in this level of now of doing science. So, because somehow, when I was a young student, I thought that we should arrive just one and only definition of life. So, and of course that should be very exact, mathematical, and very formal. So, but it occurs that was a wrong understanding of how science works. So, we may have and will have several of exact ones, but at the same time, one what is vague. So, and actually, if we would have only one very, very general or one very, very formal, in both cases, we wouldn't, these would be meaningless. That concepts provide meaning only because these two levels are together. That comes from Morris, as Susan Petrilli wrote. So, like learning, well, general, throughout all biology, learning may be defined as leaving traces from changes that will influence further changes. But learning now, you can see, can be semiotic, but it can also be completely mechanical. So, computers do something nowadays what look like learning, and this is learning. They all call it learning. So, at the same time, it's not semiotic. Doesn't make meaning by itself. So, or via learning, interestingly, Eva Jablonka, a leader of one of leaders of also third way group and epigenetic understanding of evolution, defines consciousness via or as even unlimited associated learning. Umwelt. Look now, one of our central concepts, how this is defined. And it occurs, this is also defined in several different ways. So, for some, I should confess also for myself, in the very beginning, when I first read about that, this is just an environment through an individual filter or sieve. So, of course, not all frequencies of light can be perceived, and therefore just only some. And these just organism has like a filter, and that is just creating Umwelt. But there is also another one, that Umwelt is individual model of the world, which is something completely very, very different. So, and then that Umwelt is a phenomenal world of organism. Another definition. So somehow, at first I thought we should create a big debate and battle in order to arrive, say, to conclusion which of those is correct. So, interestingly, whether that debate makes sense. As I said earlier, so both levels of concepts should be there. In that sense, it doesn't make sense. But on the other hand, I think it does make sense because, say, also the vague one is not staying the one and the same all the time. It is developing, becoming more narrow or a little more general through the debate of these more strict definitions between them. So, and that is how science develops. So, and that is the Umwelt also, can be said this is a semiotic window. Umwelt is a semiotic window. And now think, meaning making or semiosis is an event that takes a little time. And for meaning relation as a whole to exist, its relata should be simultaneously together for somebody. And for something too different to become simultaneously together, they have to be represented as together. And that togetherness or representation takes some time, thus the simultaneity in representation has a duration. And semiosis opens a semiotic window, once temporal, also spatial. So semiotic space is Umwelt and is the now. Now, about meaning. 2 minutes.
If you want questions.
If I want questions. Okay, I'll use a little more. Thank you. So for questions, that's the whole week. So that's meaning. So what is meaning? So meaning is never something single. You see, finger, and at the same time, something what is pointing somewhere. Finger and index. And you see that absolutely at the same time for you, this is not just finger and not just index. They are all both at the same time, at the same moment. And if something is at the same moment more than one, that means it has meaning. So there is a leaf. And this is also, once you recognize it, then this is more than something one. It is green form, but this is also leaf. So, and so it is two, what is also one. And that is now important. How it is possible that two can also be one at the same time. And that is, I think, kind of nature of meaning. Meaning is a momentary relation based on certain physiological system, of course, that we call process-relation duality. And that's related to binding problem. So how can something plural be experienced as one, or how objects, background, and abstract or emotional features are combined into single experience? Something is producing such connection, which is a semiotic window or Umwelt, emerging through a certain system of functional cycles. So, and meaning in this sense is always also problem solving between these possibly conflicting interpretations. Like a beetle has bilateral symmetry from both sides of the body. There are, well, functional cycle to the right, functional cycle to the left, and these may be conflicting, and coordination should happen. And that, putting these together into one, there is the place for meaning making. For meaning to emerge, at least two codes are required, which are subject to partial untranslatability. That was one of insights of Yuri Lotman. And if you now think about just meaning making in the organism which do not have nervous system, then let's think about the leaf of a plant, like this one. Here, on the basis of that leaf, there is an organ called pulvinus, which integrates from both sides. So light conditions here, light conditions there, water conditions here, water conditions there, mechanical touch here, mechanical touch there, which are often in conflict. And as a result, so leaves, what initially grow from their parts in whichever direction, are reorienting themselves slowly. They are moving, so they can move actually both back and so this and this and this. So it's a very rich movement. So I hypothesize that there is also semiosis, and that can be not only bilateral, it can be multilateral. So also in the tops of roots and or shoots that the same can happen. So the biosemiotic problem, how is meaning? And that is the problem and central understanding of this as plurality, I think, could be the basis for non-classical biology. Non-classical biology, which leader of which is biosemiotics. So, and so the new books go into or produced in biology. That is in the series of Vienna series in theoretical biology, what will come out hopefully before the end of this year or early next year. This is our sphere of understanding. Thank you.